This is Jabari Walker, and you're listening to The Briefcase with Casey Holdahl.
Greetings, Buster fans, and welcome to The Briefcase, episode 115 of The Briefcase. I'm your host, Casey Holdahl. I'm here in Los Angeles, where the Portland Trail Blazers will face the LA Clippers Wednesday night. On this edition, we'll discuss the Blazers getting their first win of the season versus the Pelicans, coming back and then losing to the Kings the next night in Sacramento. Rip City Remix selecting 3 players in their recent draft. The Collectors Cups are back, and the Blazers breaking even versus the spread on this edition of The Briefcase. After losing their first 2 games of the season, the Portland Trail Blazers getting their first win Sunday afternoon versus the New Orleans Pelicans in the second game versus the Pelicans after losing the first game to the Pelicans by 2. Portland comes back, gets a rather convincing victory versus the Pelicans, 125-103 Sunday afternoon at Moda Center. Anthony Simons had 27 points on 8 of 17 shooting from the field, 5 of 10 shooting from 3. Jeremy Grant had 28 points on 9 of 17 shooting from the field and 8 of 12 shooting from the free throw line, as well as, I believe, Jeremy didn't hit as many three-pointers in that game, but Jeremy's having a great start to the season offensively, though everyone had kind of a bad game Monday night in Sacramento, which we'll talk about here in a moment. Those 2 guys carrying the scoring load, DeAndre Ayton and Donovan Clingan doing a nice job defensively, crashing the glass, patrolling the paint. A nice game for the Trailblazers, I would say. Again, a comfortable victory after a very close loss. You know, they could have very easily won the game versus the Pelicans. I mean, I think the Pelicans showed that they were the better team in that game, but again, a few breaks go Portland's way, and they end up getting both those games versus the Pelicans, though you also don't know the way the second Pelican game plays if Portland does get the first one, but either way, Portland getting their first victory of the season, a 22-point victory after losing by just 2 the night before, or 2 nights before, I should say. So a nice little pickup for the Trailblazers, getting a home win before heading out on the road for their first road trip, just a 2-game trip. Trailblazers with the Sunday afternoon, Monday night back-to-back, Portland on Sunday, Sacramento on Monday, where it did not go as well for the Trailblazers. 111-98 for the Trailblazers, loss in Sacramento Monday night. Blazers go down early, big, basically can't hit a three-pointer all game long. End up getting back into the game. Really did a nice job of working their way back into that game in the first quarter after I think they missed their first 5 or 6 shots. I think they went 0 of 9 or 0 of 10 before they got their first three-pointer of the night. End up going into the intermission only trailing by 8, which, you know, at that point in time seemed like a good thing considering how far down they had been early on in that game. Third quarter, though, really doesn't go Portland's way. Kings shoot better than 60% from both the field and from 3 in the third quarter to take control of that game. They go up by 18 points in the third quarter, as many as 24 points in the fourth quarter, and then end up winning that game by, I think, 13. So, you know, and I would say maybe not an upbeat locker room after the loss to the Kings, but definitely I think one of the things we talked about on the last edition was, particularly after the Warriors game, was that it's one thing to lose, it's another thing to lose in that kind of fashion. But if you're giving your best effort and playing your best, or maybe not even your best, but you're playing a good game, and the other team just has more talent, hits more shots, you know, you don't ever feel good about losing a game, but, you know, those are the games you probably don't feel as bad about losing. You know, and I would say that was definitely the vibe in Portland's locker room after the loss in Sacramento was, you know, they wish they had played better, particularly they wish they had gotten off to a better start. But, you know, when you go 4 of 22 from 3 as the Blazers did, and your opponent goes 14 of 35 from 3 as the Kings did, you know, that's the game right there, basically. And, you know, you can talk about the quality of the looks that the Kings got, particularly in the second half from 3. You talk about the quality of the looks that the Blazers got from 3, which actually were pretty good. It really was one of those games. I think the old, you know, sometimes just about making shot trope gets thrown out there a bit too often. But that game versus the Kings definitely felt like one of those games where it's like, no, they actually did get pretty good shots. They just didn't hit a whole lot of them, and I've taken a little bit of blame for that one as well. You know, Portland had shot really well from 3 in their first 3 games, and so I asked Chauncey Billups just about kind of what they were doing to generate some of those shots in the pregame, and then of course they come out and shoot 4 of 22 from 3 in the game after that. So, you know, 1, that is the job, but 2, I never feel good about putting the jinx on, so I apologize for that one, folks. But you know, I thought a decent performance, and you know, we talked to both DeAndre Ayton and Scoot Henderson after that game, and you know, both guys, again, no one happy necessarily, but DeAndre was like, hey, you know, we did the things we talked about doing. We wish we hit some shots, but we didn't. But we feel good about our performance, even though it didn't end up in a victory. And I think that's kind of what you want to hear from the team, or what you want to see from the team after a loss that wasn't a Wasn't a terrible loss. They did lose by 13, down by as many as 24. Kings hadn't won a game yet either. So they were hungry to get their first win, and playing at home, Sacramento definitely one of the more difficult environments to play in. And I won't say difficult necessarily, but just definitely one of the arenas where the home team gets a lot of support, and that it does make it more difficult. I feel a lot of times people talk about it being a difficult place to play, they're talking about kind of like the venom that the crowd gives the opposing team. That's not really what the case is in Sacramento. They just really support the Kings, and they get a bounce from the support they get from their fans, which is great. That's exactly the same thing as Moda Center with Blazer fans, and that's what you want to get from a good fan base. So, a decent game for the Trailblazers, not their best, but definitely not their worst either. And so now they've had one really bad loss versus the Warriors, a really close loss versus the Pelicans, and then a kind of medium loss versus the Kings. So they're kind of getting all those different kinds of losses squared away early on in the season. So as I mentioned, the Trailblazers with 2 days off. Usually after a back-to-back, the team gets the next day off. Though I wouldn't be surprised if some guys actually went and got a workout in. So day off on Tuesday, play the Clippers on Wednesday, day off on Thursday, host the Oklahoma City Thunder on Friday, and then have a back-to-back versus the Suns in Phoenix on Sunday, which leads into another week-long trip. Definitely a tough start to the season for the Trailblazers. This is really, one of the scheduling things where, they're playing 2 road games, they're home for 1 game, and then they're back out for 4 games, I believe. That's basically a 7-game trip with a stop off in Portland. Like that's not that the trip doesn't end; it is just continued in Portland. So a bit of a tough stretch here to start the season, as the team has known to be the case. But I would say so far they're doing a good job dealing with that. Be interested to see how they come out and perform on Wednesday night versus the Clippers. All right, moving on from the present to the future, the G League held their draft a few days ago. Rip City Remix selecting 3 players in the draft. And their training camp actually just started at the practice facility as well. So the 2-way players, Justin Mana, Bryce McGowans, and Taze Moore, I'll know those guys with the team right now because they're participating with the Remix in their training camp. So go ahead and read off some of the press release for you here. Remix announced on Monday that they've selected Thierry Darlan with the 4th overall pick, along with Sterling Manley, the 46th overall pick, and center Blaise Akonobi, the 48th overall pick in the 2024 NBA G League draft. Darlan, who is 20 years old, most recently spent time in the Basketball Africa League playing with Bangu Sports Club for 6 games, averaging 17.7 points, 8.7 rebounds, 3.5 assists. He also comes with previous G League experience, appearing in 45 games. 10 of those were starts with the G League Ignite during the 2023-24 season. He is a Central African Republic native who also appeared for the national team in 2022 and during the 2023 World Cup qualifier. So a young player, a lot of international experience, also has G League experience as well with the Ignite. Coming to Portland to play for the Remix. Interesting little player there. Manley, who is 25 years old, most recently played in Mexico, where he appeared in 10 games, averaged 10.6 points, 8.6 rebounds, and 0.9 assists. 6'11 forward, played his college career at North Carolina from 2017 to 2021. And Akonobi, who is also 24 years old, 7-foot center, finished his college career at Alabama A&M, where he recorded an average of 7.8 points per game, 5.6 rebounds, and 1.8 blocks in 31 games. 19 of those were starts. He was named the 2022-23 SWAC Defensive Player of the Year. He's also a Nigerian native, also played at Morehouse College. I think there's a lot of different directions you can go when it comes to bringing in players onto your G League team. I think part of it is to prepare the NBA team. I think part of it is to find maybe young players who maybe need a little more time developing. And it looks like they've kind of got a mix of that for the Remix this season with their draft. I would say Darlan at 20 is a guy who they're probably going to try to develop and become an NBA player. Other guys, at 25 and 24, different timeline, different approach for those guys. And then along with the 2-way guys as well, too. It seems like, it's a good mix, like I said, of guys who are, in their 20s and are maybe trying to find that opportunity, and guys who are a bit younger, who are maybe in their early 20s, even teens, who, the teams are trying to figure out, hey, maybe it's just a guy who's got something more to give, who just maybe needs a little more time in an environment where he needs a little more focused coaching, and maybe not ready necessarily for the NBA, but might be at some point in time. So, I think they're doing a good job of kind of going back and forth between using the Remix to prepare the Trailblazers and using the Remix in order to maybe find some young players who maybe someday could become Trailblazers. So they're getting going there on the peninsula. If you haven't ever been to a remix game, I would highly suggest it at UP. It's a great experience. And as I mentioned, their training camp is off to a start, and I believe they'll have a couple weeks practices before getting things going in early November. So be on the lookout for more remix news. Also, some big merchandise news this week. The Portland Trail Blazers announced the new commemorative glassware featuring Donovan Clingan, Scoot Henderson, and Shaedon Sharpe that will be available this season. Collectible glass will be available for the first 7,777 fans attending select home games at Moda Center. I actually missed that on the first time. That's fun. I didn't know they were doing that. Throwback promotion became an instant fan favorite, originally introduced in the 1990s. Many of you remember the DQ glasses, obviously. Many of you still have DQ glasses. You might be drinking out of a DQ glass right now. And the Blazers also reintroduced it in 2013-14. You probably also have those glasses as well. Nick Batum, LaMarcus Aldridge, Dame Lillard, Wesley Matthews, if I'm not mistaken, as well. Nice set there as well. So now they're bringing it back with 3 players, Donovan, Scoot, and Shaedon. The November 13th game versus Minnesota Timberwolves will be the Donovan Clingan glass game. They don't know which game it's going to be because of the NBA Cup, but it'll be of the week of December 10th through the 17th, and that will be the Scoot Henderson glass. And that's a little tough one too, because again, we don't know who the opponent is going to be or what day that game is going to be on, which makes it a little bit tough to schedule those things. But that is going to be the Scoot Henderson glass, whatever game it is that week. And then on January 16th versus the Clippers will be the Shaedon Sharpe glass night. To get the entire set, they have ticket packages that you can purchase. You can also, get individual game tickets as well. I guess if you buy the Blazers collectible game Flex Pass, you are assured of getting the glasses, at least if you're one of the first, 100 to get that pack. If not, you'll have to kind of cobble together a set, which, will probably not be all that difficult. So cool promotion. Everyone loves the promotional glasses. I think they did a great job. I think the artistry on it is great. Tim Weekland does awesome work. I think it's really cool that they utilize those things. And I like too that it's an artistic rendering rather than like a photo rendering that they're just putting onto a cup. So check that out. Once again, November 13th, Donovan Clingan versus the Timberwolves. One of the games in the NBA Cup that'll be between December 10th and 17th. That'll be the Scoot Henderson Cup, and the October 16th game versus the Clippers. That will be the Shaedon Sharpe Cup. I should say glasses. They're not cups. They're glasses. Glasses. Sorry, everybody. Go to trailblazers.com/ticket packs to get your tickets for those. But a cool thing they're doing. Glad it's coming out. And drink up. Real quick before we wrap up this edition of The Briefcase, as I mentioned, we're going to start getting back to them actually being brief here at some point in time. In your betting on the Blazers segment, the Trailblazers are now 2-1-1 versus the spread this season. They failed to cover in the opener versus the Warriors, as you well know. Covered in both games versus the Pelicans. They were 6.5-point dogs in both those games. They lost the first one by 2, and they won the second one by 22. And then they ended up getting a push versus the Kings. It was a plus 13 line for the Trailblazers. I saw it at 12.5 some places, but if you got it at 13, you at least got a push. It looked like the Blazers might get the backdoor cover at the end of that game, but didn't end up happening. But a push is, a push when you're putting money on the line is a win too. So, as I mentioned, 2-1-1 versus the spread this season for the Portland Trailblazers, and they have one win. And I would say they're about on track for their season over-under, but I haven't actually crunched the number just yet. But 1 week into the season, 4 games in, it's probably too early to start considering whether or not they're going to hit that over the season or the under. Who's to say? So that is your betting on the Blazers segment, and that's going to do it for this edition of The Briefcase. Thanks so much for joining me, as always. As I mentioned, once again, Trailblazers facing the Clippers Wednesday here in Los Angeles. Should be an interesting game. Real quick, actually, too. Should talk about injuries real fast. It looks like Robert Williams III is rounding in form. He was going through a pretty good workout Fury game versus the Kings. I know he's already at that 2-week timeline or past that 2-week timeline that the team initially gave after he had that hamstring strain. So my sense is Robert Williams is probably going to be back on the court, hopefully playing here sometime in the very near future. I wouldn't want to put a date on it necessarily, but it seems like he's getting very close. So we'll try to get you an update on that sometime very soon. Shaedon Sharpe, I believe actually the end of this week, I think November 2nd, is technically the 4-week mark from the initial 4 to 6 week timeline that they gave, after that shoulder injury. Shaedon's been on the court too. I would say probably I haven't seen him doing as much pregame as I've seen Robert doing, but he's definitely out there, definitely getting shots up. So I think he is progressing. My expectation would be that sometime in the next couple weeks, 10 days, 2 weeks, Shaedon might be back out there. Again, one of the issues too is with all the games that the Blazers are playing and with all the travel they're doing, a little hard to get in some practice time right now, but I'm sure they're going to get that figured out. So both those guys, I imagine, will probably be back in the lineup sooner rather than later. Maybe not by time of the next edition of the briefcase, but I'm guessing by time we're back on the road again for this upcoming 4-game trip after we get back for that one day off in Portland. I would not at all be surprised if one or both of those guys end up playing on that trip, and which is a good thing. They could definitely use the bodies. It'd just be nice to see this entire team together for an extended period of time, or even, I won't even jinx it by saying extended period of time. It'd just be nice to see the entire team together and healthy for a while. That'd be great. And that's going to do it for this edition of the Briefcase. Thanks so much for joining me as always. We'll talk to you later on this week. Actually, maybe next week. Again, with only one day back home, it's basically get home, repack your bag, play a game on Friday, and then we're right back and leave right after Friday's game to go to Phoenix, which the Portland to Phoenix back-to-back, it's not an especially close flight, NBA. And I don't know if this is the time of year where Arizona is an hour ahead or not. But if you're losing an hour as well, that's an especially tough one. So, but either way, we're going to be back out there. Should be an interesting trip. But we got to finish off this trip first. Hopefully they're able to get the victory versus the Clippers in Los Angeles to get their first road win of the season. But we'll have to see how that goes. So for myself and everyone at the Portland Trail Blazers podcast network, thank you so much for joining us. Like and subscribe wherever you get your podcast to The Briefcase, Blazers Balcony, and Section 113. And we will talk to you soon. Go Blazers.
Hey, this is Chris Murray. Thank you for joining us on The Briefcase.